Team, we've got a great show for you today because we've got one of our favorites back for a second appearance on the show, talking about one of our favorite topics. You'll recall Lisa Magnuson was on the show prior, and we talked about the top sales leader playbook, how to win 5X deals repeatedly. That's one of Lisa's two books, but it really talked about doing mega deals. And some of you know I have deep experience doing mega deals. I spent 4 years of my life focused only on mega deals and did a few $100 million deals, and then it did $1 billion deal. So I love this topic. It's so interesting. And Lisa's book, extremely well written and very, very helpful in terms of strategies, processes, and tools for doing large deals. Lisa has also, since the last time we've chatted with her, she's been really doing some amazing work with LinkedIn training. So she's got 5 courses on LinkedIn right now. She's had 55,000 people take the courses. So we go through all of the courses she's got on LinkedIn, and we talk a little bit about one specifically, avoiding prospect stalls and stops. That's a topic interesting to everybody, I think, today, given the fact there's 4 months left in this calendar year. The other topic for today that's really important is strategic account management. So many of us have a small number of clients that drive a huge portion of our revenue, whether we're a salesperson in a territory or an SVP of sales or CRO running the business. Sometimes that Pareto principle is in existence. So a topic that we don't cover a lot on the Selling Well podcast is strategic account management. And that's the focus of today's conversation with Lisa. She's got great insights today, where we spend a little bit of time talking about the people, the process, and the programs associated with strategic account management. I always enjoy my conversations with Lisa Magnuson. I'm sure you will too. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast. And thank you for doing so. That's how we get great guests like Lisa. Here's Lisa Magnuson. Hey, Lisa, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Now, I always like asking, hey, what have you been up to? But because I spend so much time on LinkedIn, I kind of know some of the things you've been up to. And my goodness me, 55,000 people have been through some of your LinkedIn training. Wow, what a number. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I started my LinkedIn learning instructor journey like 3 years ago, and my consulting practice has always been, very targeted and, select clients only. And my clients have stayed with me for a long time. I've got really good loyalty, really good return client rate for those that take a break, they come back. So the LinkedIn learning thing was the go big. And I have 5 courses on the platform. They're all in the strategic sales area. And yeah, they've been really popular. I'm really pleased. And I just got the initial go ahead for my 6th course. So I'm starting to work on that now. It takes about 7 months to produce a course with LinkedIn Learning.
Wow.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, we're going to go over those courses in a second here, because I think team, these are things we should all be checking out. But why does it take so long to get a course up and running on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn Learning is extraordinarily particular about their instructors. So every course is its own contract. Just because you have 5 courses on the platform doesn't mean you have 6 courses on the platform.
Right.
So they vet every topic, every instructor. You have to be a subject matter expert and a recognized leader in the field, not just in your field, but also specific to the course. So they have a huge library, and they're constantly looking to make sure it's current and viable. So just the whole process of, like, when I said I have initial approval on my 6th course, to get final approval is going to be 30 days. I'll have to do an extensive table of contents, extensive learning objectives. When you hear table of contents, this is not a whip it out in one day
Right.
version.
Yeah.
To be back and forth and then go ahead. Then there's a whole script writing process, many
Wow.
revision cycles for the scripts. Then you work with your production manager. You have a whole team. It goes from the business manager to the production manager.
Yeah.
You know, there's like the mumble sessions, then the table read sessions, then and it goes on and on, just like a Hollywood movie. And then you get to their international production facility. I go to Carpinteria, California. They only have three in the world.
And you
And
record them.
full production, lights, camera, action. It's amazing.
Well, first of all, let's think of that for a second, team. So think of the work that goes into one of these courses, and then in a second I'm going to run through the topics that we've got here. But when there's that much work and expertise and experience that goes into the process, this is where you're getting a high return for your time invested in going through the course. So team, check these courses out. Check these courses out. So we've got the 5 are winning over execs, sales presentations with an AI boost, winning plays for big contracts. We're going to talk about in a second why Lisa is clearly an expert in that space. It's also something really close to my heart. Third one, how to effectively engage executives. By the way, who among us doesn't need help in that area at some point in time?
Everyone, including me.
Yeah, always. Pre-call prep for live and virtual deals. Pre-call prep. When preparation meets opportunity, great things happen. So important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's one that I think everyone listening to this podcast, whenever you hear it, all of us have deals that have stalled, including me. Avoid prospect stalls and stops. So those are the 5 courses that Lisa's got on LinkedIn today. All 55,000 other people have already been through and checked out these courses. And team, those of you who are regular listeners to the podcast here, you'll remember we had such a great conversation with Lisa the first time, probably a couple of years back, when we were talking about the top sales leader playbook, because Lisa has background in depth in terms of big deal management and winning big deals. And many of you know my career, 4 or 5 years of my career, I only did mega deals.
I
So
love that's the first time I had heard that term was for you from you. Mega deals. Love that.
yeah,
And you've got
and
some great success stories.
I had some great success stories, and then I had one non-success story. And frankly, the losing that last mega deal completely changed the company I was in. So we're all trying to learn and get better, but I picked up so many great tips from your book, Lisa. But today's topic is really kind of an interesting one and also close to my heart, and also somewhere that where I want to continue to learn and develop, because today we're going to be talking about strategic account management as an area of focus. And you were good enough to read my book, Learn to Love Selling, and then you provided a wonderful testimonial.
I did.
And thank you for that. But one of the things I think that's missing in that book is we did not touch this topic of strategic account management, because super important topic, and it's a super broad topic. There can be multiple books
Yes.
just on strategic account management. But let's talk about that, Lisa. Let's define it. How would you define, typical account management versus strategic account management?
You know, that is such a good question, and I'm interested in how you would define it as well. But so many companies have account management program, and it's a slightly different organization, maybe managed by somebody different than the sales organization. And once an account comes in and it rises to the top as a top tier account, the account management organization takes over and they take care of that customer.
Yeah.
And they make sure that the customer's happy. They might have lots of resources like, customer success resources, people that help them do that. But the difference is where I think companies fall short is if they don't have that strategic account management. And that looks a little different than just an account management program. And that difference is also the difference between losing one of your top tier accounts, one of those mega accounts, which is just heartbreaking for companies, and retaining them and growing with them.
Yeah. Well, clearly the case. So many of the organizations, particularly I'd say mid-sized organizations, you know, uh, the Pareto principle is at play in some way, shape, or form. Not quite the 80-20, but a small number of accounts make up a huge amount of revenue. And when you start to think of that, Lisa, strategic account management, are we thinking, okay, these are existing accounts that are highest spending accounts, or are these existing accounts that have the most upside potential, or perhaps a combination of both?
When I engage with companies on key account programs, strategic account management, that kind of thing, we usually start with scoring. Maybe they already have accounts. They certainly know who their biggest accounts are. Those are the accounts that get talked about and have extra resources. But I usually encourage them to sort of rescore those
Okay.
accounts with kind of a balanced scorecard, to your point, that includes, existing revenue, potential growth opportunities, and other things like cultural alignment. Um,
Nice.
there's a strategic element, like, is that account in a strategic geography, or is it in
Yeah.
a strategic industry for the company? There's other factors. The team that sits on the key account side, is there depth to that team? Can your company match that depth? If there's not, is there the possibility to sort of build that depth together? So I think there's much more to look at than just existing revenue or even revenue potential.
I love that. And because we work with large enterprise and also mid-tier organizations that see themselves as entrepreneurs. I find
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, in these mid-sized organizations, 300 people or below,
Yeah,
they're so much better at identifying a right fit customer. And they don't waste their time on wrong fit, even if it's got huge potential or it's a large spending client. They can't waste time and resources trying to manage a relationship with Walmart the way Walmart would just squeeze a vendor until there's
yeah,
nothing left. So they get much more specific about where they spend their time and how they're productive. I find large enterprise has a little less flexibility that way, where they just
yeah.
go, we've got to live with it, we've got to deal with it. And I think it's a mistake because I think it chokes out those organizations too.
Yeah,
But
all business is good business,
yeah,
thought process. The thing with the smaller companies, though, the entrepreneurial companies, they are good about fit. I completely agree with you there, and they can land some really great accounts. But I worked with a company last year, and they just fit that profile exactly, and they had some huge accounts, like aerospace type
yeah,
industry accounts. And yet with small companies, they don't have that many resources. So the
yeah,
CEO is taxed, the few resources that they have are taxed. And so what can happen is they don't align themselves properly and put the right priority on those accounts. So they get them, and then they really can't have that strategic account management that we're talking about, that's required, to retain and grow them. And
yes.
so they can end up losing those accounts if they don't step up and put at least a micro program in place.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, Lisa. So even let's say sort of a macro program. Let's say we are one of those companies, and our revenue came from 100 different clients last year, and we've identified 10 to 15 of them that are really significant. The right fit. They've got a lot of upside potential. They spend significantly with us today, so we want to continue to build and enhance. What do we do? So do we assign, knowing, we probably don't have lots of people in most organizations not doing anything. How do we think about the strategy for the account, and then B, tactically, the kind of team that might be assigned to supporting that account?
Yeah, I think, there's sort of three prongs to a good strategic account program, and it's really people, like you said, process or structure, and programs. So for those in your example, for those 10 accounts, because it can't be 50 of the
Right.
100, it's kind
Yeah,
of,
right.
and I've worked with companies where we started with 10, the top 10, that's a logical place, right? And we whittled that down to 5. Because like if you just take the people part of the equation, every account has to have a focused executive. Every account in that top, whatever that top tier is for you, for the company, it has to have a focused executive that is accountable for the account. So the accountability doesn't 100% fall on the account manager, and it doesn't also 100% fall on the whatever the salesperson's called, the
Right.
account executive, the national account manager, whatever the sales equivalent. It falls on the 3 of them. 100% accountability from the focus executive, the account management person, and the sales person. And so and then there's more resources as well. So that
Hmm.
just is kind of, even in a smaller company, that level of accountability and ownership has to be established. Then you look at process. So what are the touch points? What are the tactical touch points? What are the strategic touch points? Some of the strategic touch points are engaging that executive on the account side. And maybe it's not just one person, maybe it's a group of people. So those kinds of things need to be mapped out. Strategy needs to be mapped out, as you alluded to. And then there has to be programs. So, programs like entertainment, some social kind of programs, some business programs. Business programs, an example of it would be like a multi-year strategy map that you
Yeah.
collaborate with that account on. So I was just in a meeting with one of my clients yesterday, doing that kind of work. Map, what are their priorities? What makes sense for us to work on together? And how do we map that out over time? Because not everything's now. So that's an example of a program. And then some of the other things that would kind of fall in the program area. I just worked with one of my small clients this year on this. Like there is a time when you're engaging around the impact that you're delivering.
Hmm.
Easy to say that. You see that all the time in articles, blogs. I say that in my LinkedIn learning training a lot. But what does that actually mean? It means making sure that the people that you're working with, all of them, the executive, the resources, the day-to-day people, understand not just what you're doing, but the impact of what you're doing. And you
Yes.
have to have a program to get that done. It's not just words. There has to be a vehicle. So anyway, even in a small situation, they're not going to be as extensive, but those elements have to be in place.
Well, there's a couple of great things to
Sorry, that
unpack
was a
there.
lot.
No, that's totally awesome. I think there's a couple of great things to sort of unpack. And so just to touch on the impact, and then I want to go to this idea of reciprocity, but the impact. I just came off a podcast with Timothy Hughes, who wrote a great book called Social Selling. He's in the
Okay.
UK.
Okay. I don't know
And
him, but yeah.
super, actually, somebody I'll introduce you to. By the way,
Oh,
you
good.
should know him and he should know you. But we were talking about, you talk about impact. And he talked about at some point in time when he was selling large enterprise software for Oracle, they worked with a company in the UK called Marks and Spencers.
Okay.
And Marks and Spencers does, amongst other things, but the bread and butter used to be undergarments, underwear for men and women. And they got to a point with this, it's one of the top retailers in the UK, where any business case within Marks and Spencers, enterprise software services, it got translated into literally how many more units of undergarments are we going to sell because of this initiative? That's the only language they understood.
Yeah.
And if it didn't do that, because that was such their bread and butter, it wouldn't make the project wouldn't make the priority list. So this impact in terms of how are we helping that organization achieve their specific desired business outcome in
Yeah.
KPIs that they understand, not the ones we speak to that they don't care about, but the ones they understand.
And you make that point in your book, Learn to Love Selling. I
Oh,
mean,
thanks.
we weren't you weren't talking about necessarily strategic accounts, but you were talking, that point is interwoven to in many of your chapters. And in my mind, you said speak. You have to test that you can speak it. So can the executive speak it? Meaning the executive who it has a third of the responsibility or 100% responsibility shared with two other people. Can the account manager speak it? And can the salesperson speak it? And then where is it written down and how does it get delivered? And that's where the
Yeah.
rubber meets the road. And it's harder than people think. And that's why
Yes.
not written down very often, but it has to be because it has to, maybe it's an executive summary, maybe it's a part of a high level review, whatever, however that gets delivered, but it has to be written down. It has to get delivered. And then that tends to travel once it's written.
Yes. Yeah,
You know,
right.
one of my clients that I just worked with on for one of their key accounts, this exact thing, that sort of an impact summary. And they delivered that they had never done it before in that way, delivered it. And their client said, we can't even tell you how much you've helped us by doing this because we were going to have to do this internally,
Yeah.
going through all the recommendations and all the things that you do for us and have given us. And now we don't have to. You just gave it to us.
I'll tell you what, I love the term, by the
Doesn't get
way,
better than that.
it can't get better than that. And I love the term so much. I'm jotting this stuff down as we're going through the podcast, folks. You can see it on, you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see it. We're going to start using that for all of our sales training. When we do the training, we oftentimes, it's our language. We're going to speak to KPI 6 months from now, 9 months ago. It's just going to be, hey, we're going to have a quarterly checkpoint on the impact summary of the investment you made in the training. And unless you get a 50x return, we're not hitting the mark. So let's think about this impact summary and agree to the impact summary.
And think too, Mark, how that will travel. So you have a client, you're doing this training, you add that. Think how that document travels
Yeah.
with your client. That goes from the people in the training to the people who pay for the training to the people who care about the training, want it to happen, but don't necessarily pay for it. I mean, on and on and on. And that's why it has to go from the think to the speak to the documented. Now I started my career with Xerox, the document company. I love things that are documented.
Awesome. By the way, nobody provided better sales training than Xerox back in the day.
It's
You
so
and I
true.
talked about this the last time. I listened to the last podcast we did. Nobody provided back in the day. The issue is no one picked up on that. The largest technology companies today, they didn't keep investing in really large scale formal onboarding programs, or else you'd see the Salesforce University
Yes,
that's seen as a mark of credibility, but it doesn't exist. So,
yes, yes.
with all due respect to Salesforce.
Yeah.
So Lisa, here's another thing. And again, some of my reference points a little while back, but I at one point in time, I was a large scale account manager, not just a big deal person, but I'd managed the largest bank relationship a top 10 bank in the world had with a vendor. They had it with my company, and I was the point person on it. And they spent a little more than 100 million a year with us.
Oh, just only that?
And it was a business service. It was actually, and so one of the things that was really important when we were, working with their team in this strategic account management program was reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea of sitting down with them saying, listen, we've got a program to do all of these things with you, but we absolutely need reciprocity. So if we're gonna be bringing a senior executive in once a quarter to sit down and review a meeting where we do an impact summary and we talk about future projects, we need the commitment on your side that you've also got an executive committing to enhancing this relationship, so that when the teams work together once a quarter, those executives remove barriers in the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if we've got 4 or 5 projects going on and some of them are hitting barriers, both sides commit to having people in a room at a time where they can make decisions,
Yes.
remove barriers to keep everybody
Yep.
productive. What are your thoughts on that? Or tell me a little bit about the strategy around trying to earn the reciprocity from the client in terms of their commitment to the relationship.
Yeah, that's like a genius point
Oh,
is
thanks.
what I think. I believe that that conversation happens when you're assessing your top tier accounts. We talked about, sort of that
Ah,
culture. So I think it starts
right.
then. So that's internal. It's like, is this account going to be in our top tier or whatever, strategic accounts, national accounts, global accounts, whatever, named accounts,
That's
millions
right.
of days
Exactly.
account. So I think it starts there internally. And then I think it quickly spreads externally to test the waters, to talk about the value, because they do need to not just commit to signing up. When you're talking about building like a rolling roadmap together, a collaborative roadmap, they're all in on that. That's
Right.
not, and if you do it correctly, and I've been part of organizations many, many times over the years that do this, that are just do such a great job of this. The customer, the key account, is has even more ownership to some of these deliverables, like
Yes.
a roadmap or an impact summary, or some of these things, than even you have. They're using that as part of their how they're selling their programs internally. They're using those documents in front of their stakeholders and maybe board. They are including those things in their performance reviews. And even an executive is say, can tout, the things that are occurring. So yes, and it's not there's not one simple answer. It starts right at the beginning, and it's an ongoing conversation and reinforcement. And when the team understands that, it just and there's the things you're doing with your key account are valuable. They want to participate. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, can we add this person to this collaborative planning meeting? Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
you know,
Well, when you, first of all, I think it's a great point to think about. That's how somebody gets qualified. So on the front end of saying, hey,
yeah,
we can't have a strategic account management program for 40 accounts, but we can do 5 to 7. Maybe that's where the conversation starts to say, listen, we would like to put you into this program, but here are the parameters. We think there's a lot more opportunity where we can help you.
yep,
We know any of our help has got to be predicated on achieving desired business outcomes that you care about in your terms. But in order to do so, this is the type of commitment we're looking for from you. And is this something you want to participate in? Or
yeah,
do we still have other work to do where we're earning the right to work with you at this level?
yeah.
So
Love that.
I kind of like that idea to have that kind of conversation. I will call out a couple of times where I've set up some sort of social event with a senior executive and sat down with them, and we have some form of business relationship with the company, and maybe we're doing sales training for their BDRs or SDRs. But they'll sit down and they'll say, listen, we heard you did this quarterly sales kickoff program for one of our competitors or other companies. Why aren't you doing it for us? And they're actually a little disappointed and angry, and they're calling me out on it. They're saying, how did we not know about this? And it's your responsibility to make sure we do know. And that,
That, yep, that is that you have touched on. How does a company know when they need to start thinking this way? Putting a key account program into place a little more formal than just we have some big accounts. If a customer says to you, oh, we didn't know you did that, it's like, that's there's a red flag and a
yes,
signal that you are not ingrained with them in the way that you need to be. And
yes,
there's other signals that are more severe, like they go out to bid for your services,
yes,
or they're constantly seem to be engaging in conversations with other people that do what you do. But they need to, part of those conversations, like the roadmap conversation, part of it is they become aware of everything you could do for them. Not that you're going to do everything, but it's just everything you
Right.
could do over time. It sort of stumps me when companies don't go down this path. Sure, it takes a little bit of work, and it takes a big commitment from the top of the company and the sales organization, if those are two different things. But the rewards are just so big.
Maybe you're right. And by the way, in the instances, now I remember a second one, the instances this has happened to me. By the way, they're not saying, oh, this is unfortunate, we didn't know. They're actually saying, Mark, it's your responsibility to get in front of me and make sure I do know. Like
Yeah.
one instance, there was somebody, she was not happy. And she'd seen something on LinkedIn where somebody else posted something about an event we had with their organization, a training event we had with their organization on a certain topic. And she was not happy. She was saying, listen, my expectation is we get these first. And so, and by the way, it was a good wake up call. By the way,
Yeah.
it was a little embarrassing at the time for me, but it was certainly a good wake up call. And I think where it gets to a little bit is what you're looking for at that strategic account level is earning the right to be this partner.
Yeah.
Because I think it also, if you have that kind of trust and credibility, then when you're thinking of maybe bringing potential new offerings to the market, you might sit down with the individuals or the team and say, listen, we have an idea. It's not fully baked yet. Our
Yeah.
belief is we could be driving this kind of outcome for you. Is this meaningful for you?
Yeah.
And if yes, are you interested in doing a little due diligence with us so we can further define what the actual impact would be to your organization? That's where it feels like it goes from even strategic account management to strategic partnership.
It really does go there, and it can go there very quickly. And even if in your scenario they said, that's not really something for us, but we would be happy to be a sounding board. So
Yeah,
it's, they're helping you, you're helping them by seeing what's possible. I mean, it's just all good.
yeah,
It's good for the supplier of services or products, and it's good for their top customers. And both will be better having engaged in something like what we're talking about, a strategic accounts program or a key accounts
amazing.
program.
Absolutely amazing. And gang, I'm just going to call it out again. If you haven't picked up and read the Top Sales Leader Playbook, How to Win 5X Deals Repeatedly, Lisa Magnuson, this was bestseller, gang. I've read this once, if not twice. And by the way, I'm flipping through a hard copy on YouTube. I can still see all my highlights because I was taking so many notes and learning.
Love
But
that.
there's one topic, Lisa, given the fact this podcast well, it'll last forever, but it's going to get released. The timing will be great. It's going to get released with about 4 months left in the calendar year. And so we're going to have lots and lots of people listening to this where they're going to say, listen, I'm in the home stretch on my year.
Yeah.
I've got to figure out how in the next 60 days I position myself so I can bring home the deals to hit quota or destroy quota. And I just got to, because it's piqued my interest and I'm so interested, avoid prospect stalls and stops. When we start to think about it, any quick tips or thoughts? I know we've got a full LinkedIn course and everybody's going to go and listen to that. By the way, this is a good time of year, team, to listen to that exact podcast for sure. Listen to, sorry, not podcast, go through the training. All of the courses go through, but this one's really relevant. What are a couple of thoughts or ideas to make sure our deals that we're in play don't stall or stop?
You know, I mean, there are a couple of sort of go to things. One is a topic that you talk about a lot in your new book, and that is don't rush through the qualify process.
Yeah, thanks.
It's funny, I'm just about ready to publish an article of should the qualify stage go the way of Pluto, meaning the planet. And so there's it's kind of going to be a funny little piece, but my point there. And in my online course, I talk about, qualify is less of a distinct stage and more of a continuum.
Yeah.
And so there are things you have to qualify when you're talking biz dev in the interest stage. There's things that need to absolutely be solidified, during develop, before you get to propose. So all of those things that have to occur that don't really all occur in one time, or your prospect feels pummeled. Um,
Right.
and it's not appropriate. That's why it's more of a continuum, but you can't skip any of those. So if you want to avoid a stall or a stop, you cannot skip those things. They come back to haunt you later, period.
Yeah.
The other thing is every meeting, and this goes back to my other course on pre-call prep, which has just been my mantra for a lot of years, is if you don't plan out your next steps and gain commitment during the meeting, not wait till the end, do not wait till the end. In the middle, they have to be agreed to. Maybe at the end, you work out the details. But if you leave any call without that, stall and maybe
Exactly.
stop, but stall for sure. And so, like those are the two things. You can't skip those essential qualified elements, and you have to get commitment for that next step. And the next step has to be something that they're doing, not something that you're doing. You sending them information is fine, but it's not a meaningful next step for to get the advancement that you need.
Love it.
Was that too
And
long?
no, it wasn't. And I'm letting it soak in, but I don't think I've ever heard this idea of when you're, trying to create your call planner for that next meeting with the client and you're talking about the structure of it. Everybody's got the desired outcome of closing for next steps. I don't think I've ever heard the idea, which is so powerful, of saying structure the meeting so that the next steps come in, 20 minutes in, 30 minutes in, not 45 minutes in, where two of the three people in the meeting have already got up and left because they have to travel to their next meeting or they need a coffee before their next meeting. And then you're always kind of hustling and trying to jam things in. Oh, I'll send an email that no one's ever going to read out of their 250 emails every day.
Yeah,
I
bingo,
like, yeah, I
bingo.
love this idea of just taking that pause in the middle, saying, "Hey, we've got a few more things to cover," but I think it's fairly clear at this point in time that part of today was figuring out, is there value, that we can add here. We're pretty clear, but why don't we determine how you make that decision, whether there's value we can add, and to do that we need discovery. Can we agree that we're going to get together again with a couple of people on your team to walk through a couple of things in more detail? Because I think in our next meeting after that, we need to be able to quantify the potential impact for you.
Your
Calm, you're in no
expertise
rush.
around summarizing and restating is just impressive.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. My wife doesn't feel that way, Lisa.
Of course
Actually,
she doesn't,
yeah, yeah.
because you
She's,
can't. The way
you
you do
know,
it,
we've
she's
seen rolling eyes at our house sometimes when I go on my soapbox. And not everybody at our place feels that way, but I'm glad you do.
you can't escape. That's why. It's like after you've restated and summarized, it's like I got nothing.
No, but that's the key point, team. That's such a key thing from today, setting up that structure so that in the middle of the meeting, we actually kind of agree and think about next steps, or at least prime them for the next step so that we can have the ask in 5 or 10 minutes
Yes,
before you're rushing, before you're jumping off a call, before they cut it short. That's
exactly.
absolutely huge.
Huge, huge. So those are my avoid stalls and stops. There's a lot more, but those are the two big ones.
Team, do yourself a favor. So LinkedIn's available to everybody. Get into these courses. So by the time you hear this, maybe end of August 2023, we've got lots of time left to A, make sure the deals were in play, have installed. And then B, there may be deals you took a look at last year that kind of stalled a bit or earlier in the year that seemed to be lagging. You're going to pull tips from Lisa's courses where potentially you could go back to those, trigger, something, and then get a deal that you could close still this year. And
100%.
one of my favorite tactics is always on a Monday or Tuesday, sending a note to somebody and say, doesn't have to be a whole deep explanation. I'm just going to go, Lisa, I was thinking about you in top line on the weekend. I'm wondering if I can get 20 minutes on your calendar this week.
Yeah. Yeah.
All it is.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, a lot of people go, okay, let's just have a conversation. I wonder what you're up to.
Especially if you've already established value and they know it'll be a valuable conversation.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, I mean, one of the things that people think is valuable is conversations that have outcomes. And so the whole thing of driving the conversation so it has an outcome and it gets agreed to early, that's what also prospects want that too.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be as productive as possible in the space that they've allocated for whatever, whatever you're talking about.
Yeah. Fantastic. Lisa, we're going to talk again and we could talk for hours.
Yeah.
And but I think what we'll do at this point in time, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for the wonderful testimonial for our book, Learn to Love Selling. We're so appreciative to get that kind of testimonial from someone like you. So thank you for that. And thank you for joining today.
You're
And lots
welcome.
of people are going to want to learn more about, mega deals, doing the 5X deals. They want to learn more about the online courses through LinkedIn. Team, the links to those things are always going to be in the podcast notes. So you can find the links to these things. But Lisa, how do people learn more about you and find their way to these resources?
Everything is either on my LinkedIn profile or on my website, which is toplinesales.com. And I know the link will be there, but there's links to my courses there. There's links to my podcast, including our prior podcast. Yeah, and other stuff. There's some free downloads. So, it's a good place to visit. But yeah, everything, I just refreshed it last year, so it's all current.
And team, let me just reinforce again, I read lots of sales books, and the ones that I love end up being people who are on the podcast. That's how we choose the people for the podcast. I read the book, I love it, and then I reach out to people, and they're gracious enough to join. The Top Sales Leader Playbook, How to Win 5X Deals Repeatedly. I love this book. So pick up this book. There's no chance you're going to read this book and not be able to pick up some tips, strategies, approaches that you can apply to your business and your territory today. That's whether you're a CEO, whether you're a CRO, SVP of sales, very relevant stuff that applies at the enterprise level and at the mid-sized company level. So thank you again to Lisa
Thank you.
Magnuson for joining us today. And team, thank you for listening. As you know, we run this podcast because we want to improve the performance and professionalism of B2B sales. And we want to run a podcast where you can grab ideas or strategies or tools that you can apply today to your business and your industry. If you found today's podcast helpful, please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast. And thank you for doing so. And if you've got ideas as to how we can make this even more valuable to you, please let us know. We're growth oriented. We love constructive criticism. And you can send your ideas to Mark Cox at inthefunnel.com, MARKCOX at inthefunnel.com. We respond to every email we get. Anybody who gives us an idea, we're going to give you a response. That is my personal email too. So I'm the one responding. So thanks for your ideas. We're growth oriented and we love constructive criticism. We'll see everybody next time on the Selling Well podcast. And thank you so much for joining.